Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bob Tuskin Show. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2011. I'm your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is an honor to be sitting in for Bob yet again. As always, and whenever Bob needs me to sit in, I am glad to help out as much as I can. I love all of his listeners. His listeners are, you guys, last time I covered last week, I think I had one of the coolest call-in shows I've ever hosted. Got a chance to talk to some really interesting individuals. And later on in the broadcast, I will be opening up the phone lines again because I just like talking to you guys and hearing what you have to say. A few things I want to touch on. In the second segment, because the first segment, it's a short, fast one, I'm going to play a clip, you guys may have heard it, of Sergeant Shamar Thomas schooling about 30 NYPD officers. Sergeant Thomas is a Marine Corps veteran, combat veteran from 2 tours in Iraq, and his family has a long history of serving in the United States military. And he schooled them on their police brutality. You could see the fear in these cops' faces during the video. And you could see that they were not very happy about what he was saying. And, they tried to, hush him along and, come on, move it, keep moving. But you could see in their eyes, some of these cops were, this guy is huge. He's got to be like 300 pounds. He plays football now. He's out of the Marines. And he plays football. He's a big dude. He's got to be like 6'4" at the very least. 6'3", 6'4". He's just a huge individual. And he went toe-to-toe with these cops and told them, you guys are, there's no honor in this. You guys are cowards for what you're doing. It's wrong to be attacking innocent civilians. There's no honor in it. And he really schooled them. He put them in their place, and you could see in their eyes they were very fearful of him. It was good to see police officers have a little bit of fear in their eyes. And like he said, I'm not anti-NYPD. He said I'm anti-police brutality, which I agree. I understand that there is peace officers are a necessary evil. Like they used to walk around keeping the peace. If a guy was drunk, come on, get up, go home. If he was really drunk and you had to, you brought him to the drunk tank. And then he slept it off and he went home in the morning. Now, you get tased and beaten to death like that poor guy Kelly Thomas, out in California for nothing. And it's this drastic jump to where we are now that needs to be addressed. I don't believe that all police are bad, but I also don't believe that they have the right to violate civil rights and natural law, as you've heard Bob and Mark Passio talk about many a times. No one has the right to violate your natural law and your 3-foot natural space around your body. And just in case you guys aren't up on legal definition, assault is when someone literally gets in within that 3-foot zone around your body. Battery is when they physically touch you. So if I get up in your face and I'm like 6 inches from you, that's assault. Battery is when I wrap my hands around your neck. That's the difference. That's why you have assault and battery, or just assault. A little bit of legalese for you. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bob Tuskin Show. I'm your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Sitting in for my buddy Bob tonight. And as promised in the first segment, I am going to play the 5-minute clip of United States Marine Corps Sergeant Shamar Thomas from Roosevelt, New York, schooling a bunch of NYPD cowards. There's about 30 of them. And not one of them dared put their hands on him. It was amazing. They like to punch girls in the face. And they like to run people over with scooters that may seem kind of wimpy and liberal. But when you get some big, pissed-off Marine in front of you, things are a lot different. So it's amazing. It goes to show you how tough these guys really are. Now, in about a minute and 30 seconds in, I'm going to turn the sound down for a couple seconds and talk over it, only because he swears a couple times in it, and out of respect for Oracle, I do not want to play that over the airwaves. I am a guest host, and it is a respect thing. So, listeners, it's not that I'm trying to blur out free speech, but Oracle does broadcast on FM and AM affiliates, so it's a respect thing. Anyway, here is Sergeant Shamar Thomas schooling the NYPD.
Have a good night, guys. You see it, baby. They don't lie.
Let's go.
They don't lie.
He's pointing to his medals on his chest.
They don't lie, tough guy. This is not a war zone. This is not a war zone. These are unarmed people. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. It doesn't. I don't care. I don't care about these people. I put in my work. It doesn't lie. It does not make you tough to hurt these people. There's nothing tough about it. Nothing. If you want to go fight, go to Iraq and Afghanistan. But you want to be here hurting U.S. citizens. Where is that in the contract? Where is that in the contract? Leave these people alone. They're U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. It does not make you tough to do this to them. It doesn't. Stop hurting these people, man. Why y'all do this to our people? I've been to Iraq 14 months for my people. You come over here and hurt them. They don't have guns. They don't have guns. They don't. Why are you hurting these people? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. How do you sleep at night? There is no honor in this. There is no honor in this. There is no...
And that's where I have to mute it for a couple seconds, because he says there is no honor in this crap, except he doesn't use the word crap. And he continues to go off on them, and you should see their faces. And we're back.
These people! No honor! How do you do this to people? How do you do this to people? How do you sleep at night doing this to people? How do you do this to people? How? You're here to protect them! You're here to protect us! Protect us! Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? This is the United States of America! Why are you hurting people? If you want to go kill and hurt people, go to Iraq. Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? Why? What sense does it make? Do you get honor out of this? Do you get honor out of hitting people with the time? Is that what you get? Why are you doing this? This is unbelievable that y'all are doing this to people. That y'all are doing this to people. Come on, let's go.
You can hear the cops. Come on, come on, keep moving. But that's all they can say to this guy. They don't touch him, and they won't even look at him in the face while he's talking to him. Cowards.
Why are y'all doing this to people? No, I know that everybody's not bad. Why are y'all doing this to people? Y'all walk around in riot gear like this is a war. These people don't have guns.
It's a little crazy.
How can I not act crazy when y'all hurting people that are protected? My whole family protected this country. I understand, but I'm not out here trying to hurt these people. I'm not walking around trying to hurt them.
Your history doesn't. Iraq with you.
Now, at that point, what you just heard, I was in Iraq with you. Some little pig-faced cop walks up, little rotund guy walks up, and he says, I was in Iraq with you. Now, who knows? Maybe the guy was in Iraq. Kind of has the stare, 1,000-yard stare. Kind of looks like maybe he was. But that's not an excuse to hurt anybody. Okay, that's not, so I was in Iraq, so that means that we can hit people now. That's nothing. He was trying to, you know, rebut what Sergeant Thomas was saying. And then Sergeant Thomas schools this guy. Listen what he says.
Why do you allow this? Why are they walking around trying to hurt people?
And then all he says is, keep him moving. Keep him moving. Looking at him like he's some sort of tough guy. First of all, this sergeant would have floored this guy with, like, the blink of an eye. Let's get that straight. Second of all, tough guy realizes that his argument of, I was in Iraq with you, didn't work. Doesn't really work, does it?
Keep walking.
Please, I'm asking a nice business walk down the block, please. And I can't speak. Y'all want to shut me up. Y'all want to shut me up. Why are y'all walking like there's a war going on? Nobody has guns. Why are y'all treating people like this? This is America. Why are y'all treating people like this? Why are y'all gearing up like this is war? This is not war. Let's go, folks. We can. This is not war. Why are y'all acting like this? Nobody has guns. It takes a tough guy to act like this. Let's go, folks. Stop fighting without guns. Nobody's trying to hurt you guys. There are no bullets flying out here. There are no bullets flying. How tough are you? How tough are you? There is no honor in hurting unarmed civilians. You get no respect.
What did you see tonight that bothered you?
I was here on October 5th. I saw them beating people, people that had nothing to do with anything, just grabbing people out the crowd. There's no honor in that. My mom, my father, everybody has served in Iraq, Afghanistan. Well, I did 14 months in Iraq. My father was in Afghanistan. My mother did a year in Iraq. We fought for this country. I don't come home. I'm in New York City. I am from New York City, and these cops are hurting people that I fought to protect. There's no reason for this. There's no honor in hurting unarmed civilians, and I won't let it happen. Have a good night.
There you go.
Amen, brother. Popeye, just to add a little bit of perspective here, his background, well, he walked up to these police beating on people. So to understand why he's so passionate about this, I think is important. By the way, the great show, Popeye. I'm going to be tuning into the archive for sure. I got to get to my assignments here, but thanks as always for guest hosting.
I love the fact that you are everywhere, even when you're not there, Bob. You're like the phantom of the radio station.
No, I like it. I was listening to that clip. One of my friends showed it to me, and at first I was like, wow, this guy's really pissed off. But then she told me, she said, he just watched these cops beat on people. So there was a reason for his passion, and I applaud him. Popeye, have a great show, buddy. I hope you guys call up Popeye and give him hell.
Gee, thanks, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. You don't want to miss the rest of the show. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go to the phone lines. I've got John in Canada, who is one of Bob's favorite callers. John, how are you tonight?
Hey, Popeye. I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of a little apprehensive about this call because I guess in a sense I'm going to try to give everybody hell here, and I believe communication is vital. If we get to the core, or communication is vital. Let's just stick with that. The U.S. military routinely practices psychological warfare against the American public. It's supposed to be a crime, but so many laws don't get enforced any longer, like kidnapping and so on. But like I say, I don't. It's hard for me to know exactly how to approach this. I know that Sergeant Shamar Thomas participated in the second attack in Fallujah. This was when they wouldn't let anybody in or out of the city, including little boys, 10-year-old boys. Wouldn't let anybody in or out, no food. And then after 6 months or so of them sitting outside Fallujah with barbed wire circling the city and shooting anybody who tried to leave, as soon as Bush got put in for his second presidential term, they dropped nine 2,000-pound bombs on a city of more than 350,000 innocent souls. Then Sergeant Shamar Thomas was ordered to go house to house to kill every man, woman, and infant in the city. They went city, block by block by block, to indiscriminately mass murder every innocent soul. Now, America, there's no writers or people on your radio that have really talked about the history of Fallujah, unfortunately, but it's all extremely well documented, including on film. Just prior to them attacking the city, they said, well, we'll let some women and children leave. And maybe a couple of hundred women were let past the guards, which probably included Shamar Thomas, because this is one of the actions. He confesses to being part of these crimes, and you can catch it. Psychological warfare. He said, "Hey, you want to hurt people? Go to Iraq." Like he did. So they go in there, and they let this small group of women and children leave. Now, they go down the highway. They're not allowed to drive cars, essentially, primarily because of the culture. They're Shiite fundamentalist crazy people.
I got to ask you a question. I got to cut you off for 1 second. Is there a testimony from him or a military document that says that he took part in killing children?
Oh yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
saying that it didn't happen. Don't get me. I'm not. I know
no,
that.
No,
kind of stuff
I hear
happens.
you totally.
But I just want to know. I don't want to accuse him, or I don't want anybody to accuse him of anything, on air unless there is some sort of documented evidence that can back up. Okay, I just wanted to ask John, where can the listeners?
No, I wouldn't encourage anybody to accuse him of anything until you know the facts yourself. That's for sure.
Before
you go any further, Before you go any further,
is there a link or some place that somebody can at least see some of this evidence for themselves, like that you can give to the listeners so they can check it out?
It's mostly the Guardian newspaper. But if you type Bush election in quotes with Google and then Fallujah, you'll find out that they said, well, we're going to let this small group of women of a city more than 350,000.
Oh, no, I know all about Fallujah. I mean about Thomas himself, because I know he was...
Oh, yeah, he was on Oberman and confessed that he played a part in the second attack on Fallujah, which was just to commit genocide. But I just want to tell you what they did with the kids. They took all these little kids together with the women and sent attack helicopters on the highway they were walking on to kill every single last one of them by Apache helicopter, of which I'm sure the videos are available also. And the reason they did that, here's a good search term, the reason they did that is they said Sakari was thought to have perhaps been dressed in women's clothing. So they had to kill all the women and children. Now, all these women and children that they killed, they had already checked for weapons. But they have excuses. They always say they have an excuse. As he said, too, he was there to defend America. There's nothing to defend America by indiscriminately slaughtering the people in Iraq.
I understand that.
There's no reason.
I understand that. You understand that. You also have to look at it from the viewpoint of he's a 24-year-old veteran. Okay, so he's still young.
Oh, for sure. I
didn't wake up to this until I was, 26, 20. I didn't even start to wake up until I was about 26, 27 years old. So you have to keep in mind, he's obviously starting to wake up because he sees something that's very, very wrong. So, you got to give him a little credit for that. Now, as for the Battle of Fallujah, there was some horrible, horrible things that went on. I have video footage from it, and I spent many months combing over testimonies written by men that came back. In fact, I read a book that was authored by one Marine that they made a big case out of. You remember the guy that he capped? He talked about the fact that they had prisoners and they capped. They ended up capping one. He was injured. He wasn't really a prisoner. They walked up and it was a fighter that had been shooting at them 5 minutes before, and he picked up his rifle and he double tapped the guy in the chest. Okay, and there was the video all over the internet, and people were making a big deal about it. What they didn't explain to you, now you might say, oh, that's wrong, but what you don't understand is you're in a war zone. Okay, you're not in the frame of mind where you can look at it from an outsider's point of view and say that's wrong, especially when the guy that got shot, that little group was responsible for killing a friend of that Marine's. Earlier in the day, he saw his friend blow up. So you can't really. I mean, I understand.
No, I hear what you're saying for sure.
That's like psychological player. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, for sure. They will. All the major news will tell you that story, but they won't tell you how 2,000-pound bombs murders almost 300 defenseless innocent souls who only wanted justice for ourselves. There's no reason to bomb the city. All they were angry about was called the Jura government there, had said Sakari works for you guys. All he does is kill Iraqi children. And then before Sakari was finally snuffed out, he did make a claim, an oath, that he never had and never would attack American military forces. Please let him continue. He killed countless children, 38 children in one shot, where the American military had just finished building the power station with newly laid cement, and somehow magically he was able to put explosives just right under where the American Marines, with bullhorns, screamed out for the children to come and get free candy, and then the soldiers slowly backed off, and they poured the candy in the street, and all the children went around the candy, and then they all got blown up, and 38 children were murdered, and the grunts go, yeah, it was the curry. Well, how? Like this is what the government of Fallujah was saying. How is it that this guy only kills little kids, and you say he's living here, and we want to get him ourselves? But what's important about these kids that they sent on the road, they killed these people. They killed all those people, and to serve America's interest is to demand we follow probable cause. Shamar Thomas, he can't plead ignorance on this. He knows that they've mass murdered all these defenseless innocent souls, but he does give it to us. He says, you want to hurt innocent people, do what I did. Go to Iraq and drop 9 2,000-pound bombs of radioactive toxic waste on a group of people that just wanted justice for ourselves. They just wanted to get Sakari. Sadler is the guy who commanded all these war crimes, and now they're saying, hey, incidentally, the same kind of mentality. Hey, we got a green light now Israel claims it's got a green light to attack Iran. That's a war crime. If they attack Iran, that would be indiscriminate mass murder. To say it's a green light is a form of psychological warfare too, that somehow it's been expressed by higher ups or the intelligence in our military affairs, that attacking Libya makes any sense, because Gaddafi's doing everything that's asked of himself, just as Saddam did also. What do these soldier grunts want?
Well,
they did the same in Samara. Samara said you can have control of the whole city.
You got to understand something.
Samara, lastly, can I do one more quick story?
But you got to.
Samara.
I got it. You're going to have to wait till the next break. We're
yeah, well, it's done. Samara, they said, hey, you can take complete control of the city. You don't have to bomb ourselves. But they don't have the literacy. They don't understand how municipal government affairs work, so they just indiscriminately slaughter the people in Samara and also the church services in Fallujah. They kill everybody attending a church service, and that's on video. Watch them gun down those little kids, and then have a second thought. I'm demanding Shamar Thomas be immediately arrested for his war crimes, the indiscriminate slaughter of all these women and children. I want to see him hang for his crimes against God and man and America. He's a coward. You know why? Because he blames all those cops. He doesn't say this particular cop hit this woman, I want to see him in jail right now. He says all the cops are bad. They're all trying to do their job there. He doesn't isolate a single...
John, I have to meet you because we're going to break. So if you wanna hang out, hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to break. We'll be right back. John from Canada was fired up last segment, and as always, John, brings his point to the table. I do have to disagree with the fact that you can't call Shamar Thomas a war criminal unless you know he committed war crimes. That's a blanket statement. Not every Marine and soldier is a war criminal. Not every sailor and airman is a war criminal. I'm a veteran. Does that make me a war criminal? Does that mean that I killed babies? No, I didn't kill any women and children and babies, so we shouldn't be accusing them of stuff. Now, the Battle of Fallujah was messed up, yes, but there's a lot of stuff that went into that. It wasn't that the military just went in there for fun and wanted to destroy and kill everything. I mean, I read books from guys that ranged from guys that were conscientious objectors that were there and stuck there, to guys that fought on the ground and their friends got killed next to them. And there was a lot of one of the common things that was in there was that there was a lot of foreign fighters in that city, and they were doing a lot of the foreign fighters while the Marines were sitting on the outskirts of the city, they would get screwed with. Okay, you got to remember, Smedley Butler talked about it, about how the United States Marine Corps is really nothing more than the enforcement wing of the United Fruit Company. Back when he was alive. Well, it's still the same thing to this day. These young guys are sold something different. I went through boot camp. I understand it. You can't hate the player. You got to hate the game. Now, the people that should be held accountable, like those schmucks in Afghanistan that are running around cutting fingers off and cutting ears off for fun and shooting innocent civilians for fun. Yeah, those guys, if they did get charged accordingly by the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and if they were found guilty during a time of war for certain things, you can be hung. I mean, there is a death penalty for certain things. I mean, they'll kill you for desertion. Not really anymore. The penalty is there, but now they just lock you up in the brig forever. But they will come after you. They just locked up like a 68-year-old guy that was a Navy deserter from like 40 years ago. He's been on the run for like 40 years, and they found him, and they locked him up to serve his jail time. Gave him a court-martial and everything. Talk about a waste of money. But they do it to prove a point. Because if they don't, then, you know, other people will be like, hey, I'm going to leave. Nothing happened to this guy. So they make an example out of him, even though he's 68 years old. I mean, is it really necessary to court-martial someone? No. Well, at least, let me rephrase that. Is it really good to court-martial somebody that's 68 years old? I mean, come on. That's like putting my dad in jail. Unless he's a murderer or, you know, some sort of cannibal that eats children or something, I really don't agree with, you know, locking him up. That's just more tax dollars at waste and everything else. Anyway, we shouldn't blame randomly everybody. Now, if there are people that did commit war crimes, then they should get treated accordingly. But to randomly blanket blame everybody is just as bad as saying, like, if you're a conservative and you don't like the lefties, if you buy into the whole left-right thing. Okay, when the left tries to, when they make blanket statements, when they say if you're against Obama, you're racist. You know, that's the same thing. That's the same thinking. You can't have blanket thought like that. And you can't, logically, you can't be against one group doing it, but then do it yourself. I mean, it is physically possible, but it's not logical, to quote Spock, okay? It wouldn't be logical to do that. That's like bitching someone out for partaking in an ad hominem attack on you or something, or, you know, producing a red herring fallacy, or you know, a straw man argument, and then going and doing it yourself. You know, how does that saying go? Those in glass houses should not throw stones, something like that. So try not to do the things that, you know, you go after somebody for. That doesn't help your situation. I'm going to go to Beverly in South Carolina, who has been ever so patiently waiting on the phone. Beverly.
Hey, ever so patiently cooling down on the phone. You're exactly right about war crimes and the people that should be punished for them. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think that Joe Kennedy came under suspicion quite a while back for his funding of the Nazis. And I think Prescott Bush, there was some suspicion about him as well. But what I wanted to say was, I've been reading a couple of books. One I'm in the process of reading right now, and I think it's an excellent book. And it is by William Cooper, and it is called Behold the Pale Horse. And in the very first chapter, it's Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And he explains everything so well that a child can understand it. And another book that I read recently, I didn't agree with everything that he said, but it was by Robert Baer, and it was The Devil That We Know, or The Devil We Know. And it was all about the different types of Muslims. It was focused heavily on Iran. It was focused heavily on our policies over there and who we support and who we have propped up all along, and how the Mideast actually looks at the United States. And I think these are things that people need to understand. But when it comes to our military, it's just like, and I was telling you when we were speaking earlier, I got expelled in the 7th grade because I participated in a Free Cali rally. And Lieutenant William Cali was doing nothing but following orders with that My Lai massacre. It's like, Bob always talks about these children that get missing, and we get the poster children. We don't look at all these doggone children that are missing and all this doggone mess that's going on. But they pick this one whipping boy, this one poster child, and they put it out and they just run it through the media and get everybody all stirred up. People need to understand this is just more than what the media is showing you, and it's not one particular person. And you just explained that very well just a few minutes ago.
Well, thank you, Beverly. What do you think of? I myself, I've read Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, and you'll find later in the book. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you'll find later in the book that he even admits that some of the UFO stuff that he talked about might have been disinformation and stuff. I will give you an outsider's warning. Don't fall prey to anybody. A lot of people like to criticize Cooper and, or try to pit him versus Alex Jones. Well, he didn't like him when he was alive, blah, blah, blah. Who knows what Cooper would have done or would have said? He's been dead for 10 years. So we can't try to put words into his mouth or anything. I just want you to be wary because people, if the more you research Cooper, you will come across eventually somebody that they'll try to they're trying to constantly pit him and Jones against each other, or they'll try to make it look like Cooper was disinfo. Some people don't like the hardcore like the very conservative Christians that are, I want to say, maybe awake, like people like Mark Dice. He doesn't, he lets, from my viewpoint anyway, Mark's a nice guy, but he lets his view on religion and I guess religious dogma taint certain things that Cooper talks about, because Cooper talked about things going back to ancient Babylon and other things, especially when you listen to some of his older broadcasts. So you're going to hear a lot of stuff against Cooper. I would just take everything with a grain of salt, do your own research, and make up your own mind on the guy. I'm not going to try to sway you either way, but don't let someone don't fall prey to the Cooper worship or the Cooper haters. Try to form your own opinion, because you're gonna run into both as you explore William Cooper. But I think generally he was a good guy. I mean, I've seen people try to say that he was an agent and all some other crap, but I doubt it. Beverly, we got about 30 seconds left. Is there anything else you wanted to cover?
The only other thing I wanted to say is I appreciate your comments on William Cooper. And the thing about it is, I will be one of the first to admit Alex Jones woke me up 8 years ago or better. I stumbled across him one time. But I take everything in the, let's put it in quotes, air quotes as Bob says, truth movement. I take it with a grain of salt until I research it and I check it out and I look at everything, because everybody's got their own things, send them here, there, and yonder, and you've got to check them all out. You can't take everything for the face value that comes to you and say, ooh, well, I don't believe this because they said this or that. You've got to use your brain. God gave you a brain, use the daggone thing.
I agree. Beverly, if you want to hang out for the next segment, you're more than welcome, but we're going to break, so just hang in there for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Music makes me wonder if Bob put it on to remind everybody of an 80s montage. For some reason, I just picture, the group could be, fixing a house up or something, or, working on a van or a car. I think Bob does a little skit where he said it reminds him of exercising or jogging or something like that. Even I mentioned it reminds me of the opening of Rocky, running up the stairs, taking swings with your hoodie on. Kind of funny. Anyway, I'm going to open up the phone lines, I guess officially now, just in case the listeners don't know the call-in number already. Some of you do. 1-866-841-1065. One more time. 866-841-1065. Feel free to call in. We'll chat. Get your opinion on things, what's going on in the world. Talk about what's going on in Iran with this fake movie-type plot that, even their own intelligence and law enforcement community, like the FBI, is saying, we don't think so. So this is even the mainstream media has had to admit that most people on the inside don't think that there's any meat and potatoes to any of this. But before I get into anybody else's call, John from Canada, I had to cut him off, and he wanted to know if he could rebut what I said. So I'm going to bring him back on so he could give a little rebuttal really quick. So go ahead, John. You're on.
Hey, right on, Popeye. This is what it's all about. For sure, you know, soldiers take an oath to God and country, and we have Lieutenant Watada who says, I'm not going to sacrifice my fellow grunts for a causeless war. There's no reason to kill people in Iraq. You're a coward soldier who doesn't defend your fellow brother by saying there's no reason to bomb these people. Saddam's given us 100% access to do whatever we please. By bombing the country lowers our ability to move freely about. They could have walked all the soldiers in as inspectors. They had a plan, though, you know, and so war crimes are cause and effect. You isolate what's the intent, what's the criminal intent of the soldier who doesn't let any food or water in his city. They're never shot at for 6 months, and then as soon as Bush gets elected, now we're I said, like 9 2,000-pound bombs. Watch them shoot little kids running from a church. Know what a real patriot is. A real patriot is a soldier like Lieutenant Watada who says, I'm not going to kill little kids. So the right-hard enemy, that fascist witch, can say that she supports the indiscriminate slaughter of an innocent other. They've committed war crimes in Fallujah. I will see them prosecuted. I will see them formally put to death for killing those little kids on that highway. If you're a man, you're going to investigate the fact that they let these women and children just go down the highway and then mowed them down with their Apache helicopter. I want everybody a part of the Apache helicopter program, of which we have plenty of videos, to face the guillotine or a rightful firing squad, because those innocent souls are just as soon to be yourself. These grunts have no problem killing little kids. You don't think they wouldn't have a problem killing your family? Of course. Well, they're just obeying orders. Their order is to love God. They don't love God. They hate God. They hate justice. And I will triumph. You'll see.
Well,
Thank you, Popeye.
No problem. But karma, just so you know, karma has taken its toll on many of these young men and women, especially men. Okay, so you and the listeners do know many of these guys that in the heat of the movement did atrocious things. Many of them have taken their own lives because they could not deal with what they became when they were over there. Okay, and they came home and they break down and they kill themselves. Not many people know this, but we've lost way more soldiers, airmen, Marines, and sailors to suicide than combat in both Iraq and Afghanistan combined, because they're not able to deal with. They realize, you know, you're right. There are a lot of war crimes going on, but you do have to understand that there is still good. There is still good in those people. Okay, a lot of these things are being perpetrated by kids that they're 18. They don't know any better. They're scared as hell. And who should be hung are their commanders, the people higher up that said to them, "Go do this." I'm sure you've seen the video of one of the guys from Iraq Veterans Against the War. He was testifying at Winter Soldier, which they've had a couple events. And if you guys aren't sure, check it out. Just Google or go on YouTube, IVAW Winter Soldier. You'll see tons and tons of videos. I've uploaded them hundreds of times to different Vimeo accounts. There's probably about 300 or 400 different videos up there with all these testimonies. And he says that the one guy's talking about, he says, look, you know, our I think it wasn't his squad leader, because that's too far down. I think it was either the platoon leader or maybe it was a first sergeant. I can't I don't even want to say it was an enlisted officer or an officer. I want to say it was probably a non-commissioned officer, you know, like an NCO, like a sergeant or something, or a staff sergeant. But I digress. Anyway, he said that one of the higher ups, and I don't remember exactly who it was, but he had offered a 4-day pass to whoever got his first kill via stabbing. You know, via K-bar knife. And I agree that, you know, I mean, in a time of war, you do need to be aggressive, but I agree that doing that to our men and women, our children, because that's what's being sent over there, is 18-year-old kids. And that's why they come home, they're all screwed up, and they get drunk, they do drugs, they kill themselves, they OD, they hang themselves, however they do it. And the government doesn't care about them, because they'll just move on to the next fresh 18-year-old body. And so on and so forth. So yeah, I totally agree with you that there are certain people that should be held accountable. not every soldier did stuff like that either. There are guys that I know that, they said, I'm not doing this. They threw their weapons down. They said, I'm not killing women and children. And the guys that did kill women and children for no reason at all, and they're, even if they're still walking around and they're okay with it, well then, yeah, they should be rounded up, and if found guilty, then the death penalty should apply to them without a shadow of a doubt. But I don't want to blanket blame every soldier, airman, Marine, or sailor, because I myself served, and I know that not everybody is bad. You got to remember, the military is also compartmentalized, so they don't even know. A lot of times, like the cruise missiles, for instance, when a cruise missile gets launched from a ship, it's controlled by the ship until it gets over land. Once it's over land, there's a land-based station somewhere that picks up that cruise missile, okay, and then flies it into its target. And to them, it looks like all you see is this little video game-like screen because it's a little camera. Now, I'm not justifying what any of them do, but you have to remember there's a lot of brainwashing involved as well, and mind control. So if we're going to hold them accountable to that standard, then we have to hold the general public, every civilian, accountable as well, because they all fell for the same mind control because they bought it off the media and said, hey, it's okay to bomb brown people. And to this day, they still do. So if we're going to go by that standard, we also have to hold the rest of the country and people in Canada, Europe, anybody that supports the war, you are supporting genocide. I mean, that's a fair statement, because by now people know, but if we're going to judge all the soldiers, then we have to, we can't just look at one group in one light and not the other. We have to focus on both. If both are just, and again, I don't want to blame all the population, because there are people that go out and say I'm against the war and stuff, but I blame the apathetic general public for not doing anything and for saying, well, I'm only one person, what can I do? Because look, you call into radio shows, you view your opinion, how many hundreds of listeners hear it, okay, and then thousands and thousands hear it on the streams or the archives. So one person can make a difference. I give out, in the past 2.5 weeks, I've given out a little under 1,000 DVDs. So one person can do a lot. Thanks for calling in. We're going to break, John. I got to cut you off.
Totally infiltrated your media, academia, your Congress, and you left not a trace of the truth to be told. That's why I'm so glad I can give into the Bob Tuskin radio show. The Bob Tuskin radio show.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Hour 2 coming up. I want to thank all the callers that have called in the first hour. John, Beverly. I love hearing people's viewpoints on things. It's the only way to have an intelligent conversation. Doesn't mean you have to agree with every point made. But that wouldn't make for a good conversation, would it? If we both agreed on everything on 100%, that would be a quick 5-second conversation. There would be no intellectual thought going back and forth. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. We'll be back in a few minutes. The Bob Tuskin Radio Show.
In these unpredictable times, you can never be too prepared. Mentally, physically, financially, agriculturally. Real people, real problems, real activism. Welcome to the Bob Tuskin Radio Show with your host, Bob Tuskin.
Welcome to Hour 2, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bob Tuskin Show, and I am your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. You can also hear me Wednesday nights and Friday nights on my own radio show, and Sunday afternoons as well, over on the Orion Talk Radio Network. And if you're busy listening to an Oracle broadcast at the time, that's cool. You can always go check my archive at FederalJack.com, where I have all my archives up, or you can check out my YouTube channel. One word, The Answer to 1984 Is. All one word, The Answer to 1984 Is. And that's my full-length archive YouTube channel. That way, if you don't have to worry about missing any Oracle programs, you can always go check out my show afterwards. All right. I want to bring up the phone lines again. We have a restricted caller. I'm going to bring her up right now. Are you there, caller?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Go ahead.
Great, thanks. Well, I was prompted to call who just called. I believe he was from Canada, I think he said, who commented about how all of the Apache helicopter pilots involved in killing children should be tried and treated as war criminals and all that. I haven't really heard it said on the show yet today. Maybe you talked about it in the beginning because I missed the beginning. But it's not just that people who go into the military are young and inexperienced. It's also that they are exposed to a program of a kind of mind control. And, I truly believe that when people are exposed to a program like that, you could take the most kind-hearted, gentle person and turn them into a killer. It's been carefully orchestrated, and they know exactly what they're doing. I used to say to service people before I woke up, "Thank you for your service," whenever somebody told me they were in the military. And I kind of choked on those words today, and I almost want to say to them, "Thank you for the good you thought you were doing." But the truth is, service people have values that prompt them to go into the military, of altruism and community, positive values. I guess some people do it for other reasons, but I think the majority care about the world. And they're victims. They're victims who are forced to do things that are unethical in a culture that teaches them it's good.
I agree. Being a veteran myself, I can I can back that up. We have about 45 seconds left. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Nope, that was it. I don't think we should blame these people. I think we should have compassion for them. They are victims too.
I agree. Some of them, the really psycho ones, even we should try to deal with them as being sick instead of just being psychos. And then I don't mean not lock them up or treat them accordingly, but at least try to get into their head and figure out what caused it. And if they are really, some people end up going far beyond it, and there is no help. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate you taking your time to call into the show. And yes, I did in the beginning touch on the mind control aspect, especially about boot camp, because boot camp is completely mind control.
Yes.
Completely. So again, thank you for calling in, and I hope you stay tuned to the rest of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes. When we come back, I have a epic speech for you. I know you're going to like it. And no, it's not JFK. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, I have a speech queued up for you. This is by Dr. Dahlia Wasfi. And it's got a little bit of music behind it because it's somebody, they put it together, but the music kind of goes with the words of what she's saying. I recommend you actually see the full video that it came from. YouTube user The Paradigm Shift. And I believe the title is What They Don't Want You to Know About This War, or the Iraq War, or something like to that effect. I've also got a copy uploaded on one of my YouTube channels, too, which is under the title, What They Don't Want You to Know About the War. But the original creator of it was not me. I re-uploaded it, and the original guy, his name is The Paradigm Shift on YouTube, which I suggest you subscribe to his channel. Guy's an excellent, excellent filmmaker. Anyway, without wasting any more of your time, because it's a tad long, I want you to hear Dr. Dalia Wasfi's speech. Here it is. Check it out.
We have an obligation to every last victim of this illegal aggression because all of this carnage has been done in our name. Since World War II, 90% of the casualties of war are unarmed civilians, a third of them children. Our victims have done nothing to us. From Palestine to Afghanistan to Iraq to Somalia to wherever our next target may be, their murders are not collateral damage. They are the nature of modern warfare. They don't hate us because of our freedoms. They hate us because every day we are funding and committing crimes against humanity. The so-called war on terror is a cover for our military aggression to gain control of the resources of Western Asia. This is sending the poor of this country to kill the poor of those Muslim countries. This is trading blood for oil. This is genocide. And to most of the world, we are the terrorists. In these times, remaining silent on our responsibility to the world and its future is criminal. And in light of our complicity in the supreme crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan and ongoing violations of the UN Charter and international law, how dare any American criticize the actions of legitimate resistance to illegal occupation? Our so-called enemies in Afghanistan, Iraq, Palestine, our other colonies around the world, and our inner cities here at home are struggling against the oppressive hand of empire, demanding respect for their humanity. They are labeled insurgents or terrorists who are resisting rape and pillage by the white establishment, but they are our brothers and sisters in the struggle for justice. The civilians at the other end of our weapons don't have a choice, but American soldiers have choices. And while there may have been some doubt 5 years ago, today we know the truth. Our soldiers don't sacrifice for duty, honor, country. They sacrifice for Kellogg, Brown, and Groot. They don't fight for America. They fight for their lives and their buddies beside them because we put them in a war zone. They're not defending our freedom. They're laying the foundation for 14 permanent military bases to defend the freedoms of ExxonMobil and British Petroleum. They're not establishing democracies. They're establishing the basis for an economic occupation to continue after the military occupation has ended. Iraqi society today, thanks to American help, is defined by house raids, death squads, checkpoints, detentions, curfews, blood in the streets, and constant violence. We must dare to speak out in support of the Iraqi people who resist and endure the horrific existence we brought upon them through our bloodthirsty imperial crusade. We must dare to speak out in support of those American war resistors, the real military heroes who uphold their oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies far
That'd be the IVAW.
those terrorist cells in Washington, D.C., more commonly known as the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. Frederick Douglass said, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate agitation are people who want crops without plowing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters." The struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Every one of us will keep demanding, keep fighting, keep thundering, keep plowing, keep speaking, keep struggling until justice is served. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
I agree 110%. No justice, no peace. But without freedom, you don't have justice. That's one of the biggest problems. A lot of people, when they try to have a conversation about things, well, people can get their idea around, their head wrapped around the idea of justice. Everybody wants justice. Well, without justice, without freedom, you won't have justice. You'll have some tyrannical form of something they may call justice, but you won't have true justice. You need freedom to have that. You need people to be able to, face their accusers like we used to be able to before the Patriot Act. You used to be able to face your accusers. They used to require evidence. That doesn't exist anymore. And if you think it's bad over here, look what we've done to other countries. And now those soldiers came back here, some of them, that may not have seen the error of their ways or that have PTSD or whatever, and they usher them into jobs in the police department. And then they train them, they give them the same training and mentality that the people, because the police department, and even if it's not brought down from the police academies, because I've seen some police academies that actually teach the right thing, but when the officer goes out into his or her respective department, that's where things can change. Just like in boot camp. I've seen people in boot camp that were AJ squared away, and once you got out into the fleet, they were crap bags, for lack of a better term. And they couldn't, they couldn't keep their stuff together. So being away from that rigid structure of the boot camp environment or training center environment, being under a bad command can lead you down a bad path. Just like things can go bad in the military, you could have the same thing go bad with police departments. Now, I'm not bashing vets. I'm one of myself, and I don't think that we should be against any of them. I think they need more love and understanding. One of the big reasons is these people can't talk to their family and loved ones is because I understand what it's like to not have anybody around you understand you whatsoever and understand what you've been through. When I came back from being in the military myself, I had that problem. And to top it off, my mother had just died 3 months before, so I really didn't have anybody that understood me. My mom kind of always understood me. My family, I was already kind of the black sheep. And then when I came out of the military, nobody understood me or what I had been through. So I know what these guys and gals go through. And we do need to treat them with a little more respect. Although, as I said before, the ones that, the guys that went nuts and took, fingers and ears and stuff as trophies, that's really horrible. And, part of me wants to say that they should get help, and the other part of me says, well, hang them, with the death penalty. So, even in my own, inside myself, I'm conflicted about how they should be handled in that situation. But they don't speak or represent, they don't speak for or represent, 95%, 98% of veterans. So, let's not, treat them all with a big, like a blanket label. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Veterans Committee leaders all open to VA cuts. Title of the article I was reading during the break in Air Force Times. The top leaders of the House and Senate Veterans Affairs Committees are willing to cut funding for the Veterans Affairs Department in hopes of averting across-the-board cuts in federal spending, i.e., they won't take a pay cut, God forbid, even though I don't even think that was actually on the table, but they won't cut defense spending or money to be given to foreign governments like Israel, or maybe future bailouts. Give bonuses to the bankers, but they're going to cut our veterans' benefits, which are weak as it is, okay? And you have to fight to get them. I had to fight for over 5 years to get what I've got. Ridiculous. Okay? The VA already operates on a shoestring budget. Now, if they want to cut money from Veterans Affairs, you know how you could do it? There are plenty of buildings that they pay millions of dollars a year for that are sitting vacant because they have asbestos in them or for whatever other reason. And they just... They pay to have groundskeepers walking around. So if you're going to close something or take money away, you can close those buildings. But that's not what they'll do. They'll keep that useless crap. And they'll take away things like the funding for, having a good prosthetics department that can make a prosthetic leg and order everything that the veteran may need because his legs got blown off and he's stuck in a wheelchair. Or the wheelchair, or certain operations they won't do anymore, or they just won't build a hospital. or they'll stop funding something that's already in transition. And I'm not saying veterans deserve anything, special, but we kind of, I guess in a way, maybe I am. It's a contract. We signed a contract with the government. Their part of the bargain is they have to take care of us if we get hurt. They always try to say veterans abuse the system. It's such crap. It's the people inside the system that abuse it. You should see what these VA employees do. Okay? So that kind of waste I can agree with. If you could cut back, you could do so wisely, but that's not what they're going to do. Basically what they're saying is they don't want to cut money and funding to the military-industrial complex. So they'd rather screw veterans because they don't care. And then listen to this. I mean, this pisses me off when they write this. We believe no constituency better understands the challenge America faces, and no constituency is better suited to, again, lead by example by putting country first. Screw you. Okay? That's a joint letter signed by 4 top Democratic and Republican members of the Veterans Affairs Committees, which one of them, her name is Senator Patty Murray. She's a Democrat from Washington. She's the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee chairwoman. She also happens to be one of the Committee of 13. So she just said, as part of this committee, now there will be no debate on the floor about this. Nothing. They're going after the veterans, and you watch, now they're going to go after Social Security and everything else. And they're going to start making cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, you watch. All because they refuse to stop their spending and feeding that pig that is the military-industrial complex. They refuse to quit lining their own pockets. Do you know these scumbags are willing to screw over veterans and old people and the rest of this country, but the Speaker of the House makes over $250,000 a year just for that position alone. Not to mention all the kickbacks I'm sure he gets from special interest groups and whatnot. Even though I'm sure that doesn't happen. Right. Sure it doesn't happen. And water's not wet. And people don't expect me to believe that crap. So they're just gonna ceremoniously pretty much cut the veterans' throats. So I hope anybody that has family that's thinking about enlisting, play them this broadcast. Again, you can go to Air Force Times, okay, and just type in Veterans Committee Leaders All Open to VA Cuts, and it'll bring the article up. And this little letter came out, it's dated the 14th, but it didn't come out until Monday, the 17th, yesterday. So the cowards signed it, and then waited a couple days to release it to the public. So you people at the Occupy movements, you want to get pissed off about something? You want to be angry? We are the 99%. Well, why don't you go look at the 3% that signed up to defend this country? The 3 to 5% at the most. Okay? And why don't you back them up? You guys want something to stand behind? How about that? How about standing behind the fact that this government, which apparently some of you support Barack Obama, but this corrupt government, including him, because remember, he's the veto guy at the top. He's number 13. There's that magic number 13 again. He's involved too. Don't think, if you're a veteran, that, Obama's a good guy, because I've run into that crap. He cares about veterans. None of them care about veterans. You want to stop people from serving? You really want to starve the beast? Starve it of fresh bodies. Support IVAW, Iraq Veterans Against the War. Those are the war resistors that Dr. Dalia Wasfi was talking about. You have no idea how many war resistors there are out there. On the run. Trust me. Thousands. I'm not making that number up. Thousands of war resistors on the run. Support them. These people are resisting deployment in illegal wars. They're standing up for their oath, which is what they're supposed to be doing. Go check out ivaw.org. Okay? Just check out that website. You don't have to donate. I'm not trying to be a spokesperson for them. Go on YouTube, type in IVAW, and listen to the testimonies of these guys that were willing to come forward. And I know vets that have bashed them and said, oh, blah, 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 blah. These are the same morons that would have bashed the Vietnam vets for coming forward, you know, some of the ones that did come forward. And I'm not talking about John Kerry. I think all that stuff anything that he did was done for political aspirations and for, you know, anything he would have been involved with, I think, would have been handled at the very least. So I don't believe that crap. And I don't support Jane Fonda. I think Jane Fonda should be actually tried for war crimes, considering she is responsible for POWs being tortured to death. If you don't know the story about that really quick, she happened to be in a North Vietnamese prison camp, and when she went around and she met a couple of the prisoners, they had each taken a piece of cloth, written their service number on it, and they handed it to her. And when she was done, she had them all collected in her hand, turned around, and deposited them into the hand of the prison commander, who then beat them. And I think 2 or 3 of them died. You could look the story up. But yeah, so she's responsible for the death of prisoners of war. So I don't support her either. But that doesn't mean I have to support bombing innocent people anywhere in the world. I don't support it. I don't support people losing their civil liberties here in the country. And I don't support people's human rights being violated anywhere. And I'm tired of being part of this cog in the machine, as it were, supporting this. People need to get angry and stand up. Don't be keyboard commandos either. Posting stuff on Facebook and Twitter isn't good enough. You got to get out and tell people and educate people, do screenings and stuff. You will make a difference. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Stay asleep, obey. When he looks at it with his eyes, it's what we see. When he looks at it with the sunglasses, we're seeing the same things all the way through, the subliminal, symbolic that you couldn't see. Obey, no independent thought, don't think for yourself.
I wear my sunglasses at night so I can watch you weep and breathe your storyline.
Obey, no independent thought, don't think for yourself.
Maybe if they're going to make cuts anywhere, they should. I mean, obviously they should start with what they spend on the military, but they won't. That's why they made the super committee, because there was too much arguing in Congress. Well, that's the point of Congress. So let's just go around the Constitution altogether, and yet I don't see anybody at Occupy Wall Street talking about the super committee. We're pissed at Wall Street. Red herring. You're wasting your time. Now I'm getting mad at some of the Occupy protesters, because a lot of the people that show up are well-meaning, but there's people out there that are purposely trying to divert this in a certain direction, just like the Tea Party was diverted. I've said on my show, I believe the Occupy Wall Street thing was originally created as a pressure relief valve to take pressure off of what's going on. They can control it because they saw it swelling up. You know, what would you do? Would you rather let an air tank explode, or would you rather the pressure relief valve blow off when it gets to a certain point? Obviously, you wouldn't want to stand next to an air tank that was going to explode. Well, the country is kind of like that. People are pissed, and they know that. So if they put a little pressure relief valve in there, they can control it. Now, I think some of it has got out of their hands, and they are trying to rein it in and control anything that does pop up through certain methods. It's very interesting when you see who some of the people are connected to in certain different occupied groups around the country. I've seen some shady stuff at the one here in Miami. Luke Rudowski did a report right from, I think it was 2 nights ago. I think it was Sunday night. He did a report right from by Zuccotti Park. And apparently a certain group of individuals had decided to meet up with somebody from the New York Times, and they decided that they were going to give what they considered to be their message to the New York Times, and that was going to get printed in yesterday's paper. So, Luke interviewed somebody that was there, and he said, look, we're not left, right, or anything, and these people are trying to interject, their own views and stuff. And they said, flat out, don't believe the New York Times article. Well, that stuff is going on down here, too, in Miami. I've done 4 shows about it now. You can see it in my archives. I've done 4 shows about what's going on, what I saw. I've had other people call in and stuff. So it's not just happening in one place, and I think everybody needs to take heed. The Occupy protests are good. It's good that people are going out, but now the people that are being heard and only being allowed to be heard, because there are people that are steering it. I saw it mine down here. One of the guys, the quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, of organizers, one of the organizers down here, he's put himself in that position. Okay, and he was walking a guy towards the press because it was coming up on the 5 o'clock hour, and then that means down here that they do their quick stories, and all the press was there. And I heard him coaching the guy on what to say. Remember what you're supposed to say, is what he said. Walked right past me, I heard it clear as day. And he knows who he is. He's been confronted multiple times. He knows he knows that people are onto him. This is the same guy that'll come up to certain people and they'll be engaging in conversation with, there's a lot of hardcore feminists showing up, and as soon as you say, well, that girl and that girl, we are women, and they got to start a fight with you over that, and they try to, it's almost like they're purposely sent over, being useful idiots to create some sort of straw man argument. And then this guy and one other dude who now, since being called out on my show by somebody on one of my shows last week by somebody who knows about the New World Order and stuff, a local activist, he has not shown up to any more events, no more General Assembly meetings. He has not been down there at the Tent City down at Government Center. So very interesting. But these two would come up, and they would, if say the feminists came over and started a fight with somebody, whether it be a female, but usually they would pick the guys to start fights with. And, again, contrived almost. It would almost be like a horrible B-movie script if it weren't real. And they would argue, and then he would come over and go, let's talk man to man, don't talk like that to a female. Trying to chest up and be tough in front of the girl, but at the same time not offend her femininity, I guess, her feminism. Femininity would make her more of a girl, as, I guess, her feminism, her... just ridiculous. And that's very shady behavior, and this guy has a history of doing this kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much into it. The point is, you have to be watchful of these people. Occupy LA, there was a guy saying the Constitution needs to be rewritten, it's too old, and there were morons in the crowd that agreed with him. So you need to go out to these events with, movies like Freedom to Fascism, The American Dream, perhaps 1 or 2 good, maybe 9/11 Truth DVDs, but try to keep Freedom to Fascism and stuff first, because Aaron touches on everything in that movie. And perhaps The American Dream. Sometimes that, if somebody is, a little more simpler and they might not get the full gist of the other movie, that'll help them out. Bring flyers out. Bring Oath Keepers flyers out for the police. Hand them out. I do it all the time. I try to give police officers all the time DVDs. Do what you can. Come out to these events and try to educate people. Bring out flyers, engage in conversation. Try not to get hostile when you talk to somebody if they're not sure about what's going on. Some people, they might get offended at what you say. They might not like what you have to say. Don't fall into the traps. Bob was talking about the trivium last night. Learn the trivium. Learn logical fallacies. That's just a small part of it, a tiny little infinitesimal part of it. But just knowing that alone and understanding the red herring fallacy, the straw man fallacy, You understand those two just by themselves, and ad hominem attacks. To understand all those, if you understand those three, you can at least, right off the bat, defend yourself somewhat in an argument. See, what I do is if I'm trying to talk to somebody and or a group of people, and somebody comes up, which happens a lot, and they try to deflect it, I know that they're doing it. I try to pay attention to that. You have to, keep your eyes open, be on alert. Pay attention. Watch how they engage you. Watch what they say when they engage you. And I'm not saying that everybody that's going to come up to you is questionable and shady, but pay attention. That way they can't trap you into one of these arguments, because a lot of times they try to do the straw man. That's one of their favorites. And they'll try to drag you into it. And what you can't get into it and start fighting that issue with them, because that's what they want. What you have to do is identify it as a straw man, right? Like out loud, tell them you know what they're doing, and you're not going to permit them from taking you off of the original argument just because they can't counter it with any facts. And 9 times out of 10, they'll walk away. Because now they know that you are at least on the same level, if not above them, with your knowledge of we'll say the trivium. You have to understand this stuff. The stuff Bob was talking about last night, it's so deep. You have to go and check it out. It's not a joke. Because you will literally be able to dissect someone's argument. I'm telling you, once you learn this stuff, and it registers in your head, and it processes up there, I'm telling you, it's a weapon that can never be taken away from you. And no matter what, in any part of your life, it'll apply to. When you go to the doctor, if you say something the doctor doesn't like, and they try to, build some retarded straw man argument to attack it, you'll notice these things. But most importantly, it's when you're talking to people, like the guy at Occupy LA that was saying we should get rid of the Constitution, that you'll be able to refute these type of people and maybe educate. A lot of the people around them, they don't know. And I'm not saying that's any excuse. But you have to understand what you're dealing with. Instead of whining about it or complaining about it or ranting about it, look at the problem, assess it, understand it, and come up with a solution to it. That's how you roll. That's how we're going to change things for the better. Going to break. We'll be right back. Final segment for today's Bob Tuskin show. I want to thank you all for listening, hanging out with me. I think Bob's got some of the coolest callers I've ever had the pleasure of conversing with. Whether or not I agree with everything everybody says, at least people interact and get involved, and I like that. That makes for good conversation. Like I said, it's very boring when everybody agrees. Sometimes it's good to have a differing point of view. Stir up the pot a little bit. Again, I want to thank all of you guys for listening today and hanging out with me. Please go check out what Bob was talking about, the trivium. Very important stuff. But I'm going to give you guys a list of books I want you to check out. And I do this to my listeners on my show. And some of you that listen to my show will probably have heard me say this before. So if you guys are hearing me repeat anything, I'm not doing it to make your ears bleed. But there are people that are listening that have never heard me before. And I think it's important to get out some of these books. Because, after all, you can have it in ebook format, but if they light off some sort of EMP weapon, and it could be the Illuminati, somebody we piss off because we invaded their country, who knows? You never know. A bad storm, a solar flare. There's plenty of things that could cause an EMP burst of sorts. And with that goes all electronics, goes the internet, goes all data that's not backed up inside of a lead-lined box So it's important to have physical books. There is this mad push to take away books out of schools. You'll see that they give kids iPads now and stuff. They don't want them to have physical books. They can electronically change the content. It's harder to do that with a physical book. All the more reason physical books are important. I am a book collector, as are many other truth seekers that I know collect books as well. But I'd like you all to, as Bob says, get out your crayons, and I'm going to list a few books that from my personal collection, that I think you guys should check out for further reading, and then perhaps maybe pass on to somebody else, or buy them a copy, but try to keep at least a copy for yourself. I don't like giving away books to people. I just tell them to go where they can buy a copy. I like to physically keep mine. Anyway, there are two books by Colonel Fletcher Prouty. One called JFK, and the other one called The Secret Team. Both by Colonel L. Fletcher Prouty. Prouty. The Secret Team will help you understand how the CIA controls all other government agencies and other things, even down into city level, and much more. JFK speaks for itself, and Prouty had inside knowledge about certain things. Another great book by Robert Wilcox called Target Patent. And if you go to federaljack.com and scroll down on the right-hand side, you will see a widget that says Radio Show Archives. And it's a picture of Morpheus' sunglasses from The Matrix, and you see Neo in one with the blue pill and one with the red. Click on that. That brings you my archive page. If I remember correctly, it was July 31st I interviewed Robert Wilcox, and we talked about the assassination of George Patton. He didn't die from injuries sustained in some weird, simple car crash. It just happened he died right before he was coming home. No, it wasn't that simple. So, but you want to check out his book. It's called Target Patent. And check out the interview I did with him. Really, really powerful. Also, I suggest you purchase Me and Lee by Judith Vary Baker. Me and Lee by Judith Vary Baker. And Ed Haslam's book. Haslam. Ed Haslam. Dr. Mary's Monkey. So you can understand what's going on with the cancer epidemic that we have today. You've heard, I'm sure some people have heard Jones rant on his show where he talks about cancer and the vaccines. This kind of shows you what he's talking about. He doesn't really get into it too much. Ed's book gets into detail about what they did and what happened and what was going on with the polio vaccine. It goes all the way back to the 50s. Very, very, very good book. And a good book for you to get to understand from kind of an insider's point of view by Manly P. Hall is The Secret Destiny of America. And he wrote two books, and that has both of them in it. The one that the copy that you'll end up picking up now, it's got both his works usually in one. It's called The Secret Destiny of America by Manly P. Hall. And then one of my personal favorites, None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen. The book's 50 years old. It's very short, but it'll give you a quick rundown on the Communist Revolution and who really wrote the Communist Manifesto. Interesting. The manifesto was Weishaupt's writings rewritten pretty much. So somebody took a group of, I forget the name of the group. It always reminds me of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but there was this little secretive organization that took Adam Weishaupt's writings, the founder of the Bavarian Illuminati and a Jesuit, and they took his writings and That's where the Communist Manifesto came from. I'm absolutely butchering the story, so look up None Dare Call It Conspiracy online, try to buy it. Bob's listeners, you guys are so cool. If you guys email me at info@federaljack.com, info@federaljack.com, I do have an ebook version of it. I will send to you. And I'll also send you a copy of Deliberate Dumbing Down of America by Charlotte Iserby, both in ebook format, both very good books. So again, info@federaljack.com. In the subject line, just put None Dare Call It Conspiracy, and I'll send you the copy of that and Charlotte's book. And the ultimate 9/11 debunking book to destroy debunkers would be Debunking 9/11 Debunking by David Ray Griffin. Debunking 9/11 Debunking by David Ray Griffin. Excellent, excellent book. Excellent book. If you can, go out and purchase them. There's hundreds of other titles. That's just barely scraping the surface, guys and gals. We're almost out of time for today. As always, it's a pleasure hanging out on the Bob Tuskin Show and hanging out with Bob's listeners and his callers. Make sure you check out some of the books I talked about. And check out IVAW.org. And, as always, stay safe. You guys are awesome. As Bob says, love you guys.
Today, at least back in the 30s after the Rothschilds, Warburgs, and Rockefellers robbed the American economy, many of us had some understanding of the unsavory characters who had gained control of the banking system. Today, they have totally infiltrated your media, academia, your Congress, and have left not a trace of the truth to be told. That's why I'm so glad I can tune into the Bob Tuskin Radio Show. The Bob Tuskin Radio Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can check my website out, federaljack.com. My YouTube channels, Federal Jack Tube number 6. Federal Jack Tube and the number 6, all one word. And my full-length channel, The Answer to 1984 is, again, all one word, The Answer to 1984 is. I have movies up there and the archives of all my shows going back 6 months. Thanks for listening. It's been a pleasure. I'm out.
Protect them! You're here to protect us! Protect us! Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? This is the United States of America! Why are you hurting people? If you want to go kill and hurt people, go to Iraq. Why are you hurting U.S. citizens? Why? What sense does it make? Do you get honor out of this? Do you get honor out of hitting people with the time? Is that what you get? Why are you doing this? We gotta walk down the block. This is unbelievable that y'all are doing this to people. That y'all are doing this to people. Come on, let's go.
You can hear the cops. Come on, keep moving. But that's all they can say to this guy. They don't touch him, and they won't even look at him in the face while he's talking to him. Cowards.
Why are y'all doing this to people? No, I know that everybody's not bad. Why are y'all doing this to people? Y'all walk around in riot gear like this is a war. These people don't have guns.
It's a little crazy.
How can I get that crazy when y'all hurting people that are protected? My whole family protected this country. I understand, but I'm not out here trying to hurt these people. I'm not walking around trying to hurt them.
Your history doesn't. Iraq with you.
Now, at that point, what you just heard, I was in Iraq with you. Some little pig-faced cop walks up little road town guy, walks up and he says, I was in Iraq with you. Now, who knows? Maybe the guy was in Iraq. Kind of has the stare, 1,000-yard stare. Kind of looks like maybe he was. But that's not an excuse to hurt anybody. Okay, that's not. So I was in Iraq, so that means that we can hit people now. That's nothing. He was trying to, you know, rebut what Sergeant Thomas was saying. And then Sergeant Thomas schools this guy. Listen what he says.
Why do you allow this? Why are they walking around trying to hurt people? Let's go, folks.
And then all he says is, keep him moving. Keep him moving. Looking at him like he's some sort of tough guy. First of all, this sergeant would have floored this guy with, like, the blink of an eye. Let's get that straight. Second of all, tough guy realizes that his argument of, I was in Iraq with you, didn't work. Doesn't really work, does it?
Please, I'm asking a nice minute walk down the block, please. And I can't speak. Y'all want to shut me up. Y'all want to shut me up. Why are y'all walking like there's a war going on? Nobody has guns. Why are y'all treating people like this? This is America. Why are y'all treating people like this? Why are y'all gearing up like this is war? This is not war. Let's go, folks. We can. This is not war. Why are y'all acting like this? No one has guns! It takes a tough guy to act like this! Let's go, folks. Trying to hurt people without guns! Nobody's trying to hurt you guys! There are no bullets flying out here! There are no bullets flying! How tough are you? How tough are you? There is no honor in hurting unarmed civilians. You get no respect. What did you see tonight that bothered you? I was here October 5th. I saw them beating people, people that had nothing to do with anything, just grabbing people out of the crowd. There's no honor in that. My mom, my father, everybody has served in Iraq, Afghanistan. Well, I did 14 months in Iraq. My father was in Afghanistan. My mother did a year in Iraq. We fought for this country. I don't come home. I'm in New York City. I am from New York City, and these cops are hurting people that I fought to protect. There's no reason for this. There's no honor in hurting unarmed civilians, and I won't let it happen. Have a good night.
There you go,
brother. Popeye, just to add a little bit of perspective here, his background, well, he walked up to these police beating on people. So to understand why he's so passionate about this, I think is important. By the way, the great show, Popeye. I'm going to be tuning into the archive for sure. I got to get to my assignments here, but thanks as always for guest hosting.
I love the fact that you are everywhere, even when you're not there, Bob. You're like the phantom of the radio station.
No, I like it. I was listening to that clip. One of my friends showed it to me, and at first I was like, wow, this guy's really pissed off. But then she told me, she said, he just watched these cops beat on people. So there was a reason for his passion, and I applaud him. Popeye, have a great show, buddy. I hope you guys call up Popeye and give him hell.
Gee, thanks, Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to break. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by. You don't want to miss the rest of the show. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go to the phone lines. I've got John in Canada, who is one of Bob's favorite callers. John, how are you tonight?
Hey, Popeye. I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of a little apprehensive about this call because I guess in a sense I'm going to try to...
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Bob Tuskin Show. Today is Tuesday, October 18th, 2011. I'm your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. It is an honor to be sitting in for Bob yet again, as always. And whenever Bob needs me to sit in, I am glad to help out as much as I can. I love all of his listeners. His listeners are, you guys, last time I covered last week, I think I had one of the coolest call-in shows I've ever hosted. Got a chance to talk to some really interesting individuals. And later on in the broadcast, I will be opening up the phone lines again because I just like talking to you guys and hearing what you have to say. A few things I want to touch on. In the second segment, because the first segment, it's a short, fast one, I'm going to play a clip, you guys may have heard it, of Sergeant Shamar Thomas schooling about 30 NYPD officers. Sergeant Thomas is a Marine Corps veteran, combat veteran from 2 tours in Iraq, and his family has a long history of serving in the United States military. And he schooled them on their police brutality. You could see the fear in these cops' faces during the video. And you could see that they were not very happy about what he was saying. And, they tried to, hush him along and, come on, move it, keep moving. But you could see in their eyes, some of these cops were, this guy is huge. He's got to be like 300 pounds. He plays football now. He's out of the Marines. And he plays football. He's a big dude. He's got to be like 6'4" at the very, put their hands on him. It was amazing. They like to punch girls in the face. And they like to run people over with scooters that may seem kind of wimpy and liberal. But when you get some big, pissed off Marine in front of you, things are a lot different. So it's amazing. It goes to show you how tough these guys really are. Now, about a minute and 30 seconds in, I'm going to turn the sound down for a couple seconds and talk over it, only because he swears a couple times in it, and out of respect for Oracle, I do not want to play that over the airwaves. I am a guest host, and it is a respect thing. So, listeners, it's not that I'm trying to blur out free speech, but Oracle does broadcast on FM and AM affiliates, so it's a respect thing. Anyway, here is Sergeant Shamar Thomas schooling the NYPD.
Have a good night, guys. You see it, baby. They don't lie. Let's go. They don't lie.
He's pointing to his medals on his chest.
They don't lie, tough guy. This is not a war zone. This is not a war zone. These are unarmed people. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. It doesn't make you tough to hurt these people. It doesn't. I don't care. I don't care about these people. I put in my work. It doesn't lie. It does not make you tough to hurt these people. There's nothing tough about it. Nothing. If you want to go fight, go to Iraq and Afghanistan. If you want to be here hurting U.S. citizens. Where is that in the contract? Where is that in the contract? Leave these people alone. They're U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. citizens. U.S. It does not make you tough to do this to them. It doesn't. Stop hurting these people, man. Why y'all do this to our people? I've been to Iraq 14 months for my people. You come over here and ignore them. They don't have guns. They don't have guns. They don't. Why are you hurting these people? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. How do you sleep at night? There is no honor in this. There is no honor in this. There is no...
And that's where I have to mute it for a couple seconds, because he says there is no honor in this crap, except he doesn't use the word crap. And he continues to go off on them, and you should see their faces. And we're back.
These people! No honor! How do you do this to people? How do you do this to people? How do you sleep at night doing this to people? How do you do this to people? Let's go. How?
At the very least, 6'3", 6'4". He's just a huge, huge individual. And he went toe-to-toe with these cops and told them, you guys are, there's no honor in this. You guys are cowards for what you're doing. It's wrong to be attacking innocent civilians. There's no honor in it. And he really schooled them. He put them in their place, and you could see in their eyes they were very fearful of him. It was good to see police officers have a little bit of fear in their eyes. And like he said, I'm not anti-NYPD. He said I'm anti-police brutality, which I agree. You know, I understand that there is peace officers are a necessary evil. You know, like they used to walk around keeping the peace. If a guy was drunk, you know, come on, get up, go home. You know, where, you know, if he was really drunk and you had to, you brought him to the drunk tank. And then he slept it off and he went home in the morning. Now, you get tased and beaten to death like that poor guy Kelly Thomas, you know, out in California for nothing. And it's this drastic jump to where we are now that needs to be addressed. I don't believe that all police are bad, but I also don't believe that they have the right to violate civil rights and natural law, as you've heard Bob and Mark Passio talk about many a times. No one has the right to violate your natural law and your 3-foot natural space around your body. And just in case you guys aren't up on legal definition, assault is when someone literally gets in within that 3-foot zone around your body. Battery is when they physically touch you. So if I get up in your face and I'm like 6 inches from you, that's assault. Battery is when I wrap my hands around your neck. That's the difference. That's why you have assault and battery, or just assault. A little bit of legalese for you. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bob Tuskin Show. I'm your guest host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Sitting in for my buddy Bob tonight. And as promised in the first segment, I am going to play the 5-minute clip of United States Marine Corps Sergeant Shamar Thomas from Roosevelt, New York, schooling a bunch of NYPD cowards. There's about 30 of them. And not one of them did